Aloha, welcome to this week's video. So this is going to be a fast one. It's actually the first one video I've done in a while. So I'm going to be making a leo mano pahoa. So the body of it is going to be a leo mano, similar to my last video, although a thinner style. And I'm doing that on this really beautiful, light, curly koa wood. And then for the handle, it's going to have this marlin bill as a dagger, pahoa. I'm not going to put teeth in this marlin bill just because it's thin. So whenever I have a marlin bill that's too thin, I won't put teeth into it. Mainly just because I have to cut grooves in for the teeth, and I'm concerned with how thin this marlin bill is. If I cut those grooves into, it's just going to make the marlin bill too brittle. And I don't really want that. And so it's going to be a simpler style leo mano with this pahoa at the end. But I'm not too worried about it. I think it's going to look really good, especially with the contrast between the marlin bill and the leo mano here. So what I'm doing now is I've already cut the grooves into the marlin bill after filling it with epoxy, and I'm just matching that up to the body of the handle side of the leo mano. And then I'm going to go ahead and epoxy that into place. I don't know what works better, epoxy or wood glue. I think epoxy does because the marlin bill is porous and the epoxy works into those pores. I haven't tried actually using wood glue. I just suspect it won't work very well. Just because the wood and marlin, the bone, are just two different characteristics, and so I think this works better. I am going to lash the handle, but I'm going to be doing a simple lashing on it. The piece of koa wood though here is pretty thick. I probably could have I don't have a planer, but I probably could have put it through my bandsaw and thinned it down a little bit. I did want to have a really high center groove, and what I should have done is I should have glued the marlin bill offset just a little bit and then cut about a 1/4 inch off of one section using my bandsaw, but I didn't think about it until I had already set in the marlin bill, and I set it perfectly in the center. So I needed to remove sections from both sides, and that's kind of too much of a risk, so I just went to shaping. It did take me about 2.5 days actually to shape that down, just because there was so much excess material and I wanted to be careful. I did leave it a little bit thick so that when I start sanding here with the 120 and then moving down to the 220 and 320, I make sure and have that center. I really wanted that center ridge line on the leo mano, just so that it have a really clean, crisp edge. And I wanted that just because the leo mano here is a thin leo mano, and so I wanted those details to be very present. I did get some new bits. I was very excited about these. So this is a tile cutting bit. I've never used a style bit. I wanted to try it on the grooves. I liked the diameter of the bit, but as I started using it, it's really difficult to tell with my camera because it's not close enough, but the bit had a lot of vibration. I tried at max RPMs, at min RPMs, in the middle, going slow, going fast. I tried just a whole array of different speeds and pressures, and what would end up happening is the bit would kind of vibrate and chunk out a section, and in the end I didn't like it, and so I switched back to my other bit. It's kind of unfortunate. I think that was like a $15 bit, 15, so $15 down the drain. I'm sure I'll use it for something somewhere, but it definitely didn't work for the grooves. So I stuck with my regular tungsten carbide bit for cutting in those grooves. Now they have the grooves cut in, I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding this piece to 320. Once it's sanded to 320, I can get to cutting in, or gluing in the teeth and getting it ready to start drilling. I thought about taking this further to 400 or 800 grits. I kind of decided to leave it at 320. It was already looking very beautiful, and I did want it though to have a little bit more character, rough of a look, and so I left it at 320. To put in the teeth, the first step is always the same. So I'm just putting in a little bit of 5-minute epoxy mixed with wood shavings from this piece. I usually use the piece that I'm working on, not always, and then put in the teeth. I forgot to, or I didn't forget, the recorder died, and so you missed the second half, but it was just like the first half. Trust me, you didn't miss out on anything. If you really want to see it, go watch one of my other videos. You can see me gluing up both sides. Now, the angle of the teeth, or I'm sorry, the angle of the wood on this piece is very sharp. And so I made sure to put in starter holes using this piece of brass that I sharpened down a long time ago. I'm just punching in a starter hole so that when I go to drill the holes in with my bit here, the bit doesn't walk. If you don't put a starter bit in there, you have to be very careful. It can walk on you, and I didn't want to risk it walking on me, and so I went ahead and put those in. If I had a drill press, I might not have to do that. I might still need to do that. I guess it depends on the rigidity of the bit that you're using. So I used a brand new bit for this, and I don't know if I was pushing too hard or I was going too fast, but I ended up burning up the tip of that bit after just 3 teeth, which kind of blew my mind. I've never done that before. I've never had one burn out that fast, so I don't know if it was just a bad bit. I might be able to fix it, but it's kind of unfortunate because those bits are about $12 a piece, and so quite a bit of waste actually I had on this piece. Trying out new bits, one that burnt out, so on and so forth. But now I have the piece finished, or not finished, ready for oiling. And look at that. Oh man, I was not gonna lie, even before I even started shaping, I was excited for this. I could see the curl just from the beginning, and it was looking absolutely gorgeous. So this piece was just a beautiful piece. The one thing that the tung oil does is lighter grain woods. It does kind of give it a golden color, which sometimes I really like, other times I don't. On this piece, it just accented it perfectly. And so the color transition from the marlin bill to the leo mano to the body just looks absolutely beautiful. So the last 2 steps that I'm going to have once I let this sit, so I'll let it sit for usually a minimum of a day, sometimes longer, depends on how many coats of tung oil I put on it. But once I let it sit, I'm going to come back and lash it up. Lashing this piece took about, or this top section, lashing the teeth, took about an hour. No, I'm sorry, it took about 2 hours. I'm going to skip all of that just because it's the same thing over and over. I just used a basic lashing on this, and then I knot the end, and I tuck the tails of that knot into the piece after I cut them a little bit short. It was a little bit awkward doing the lashing on there. You'll notice I had that piece of foam at the end. I just wanted to make sure that the marlin bill wasn't going to get chipped or damaged on the seat. And then what I'm doing here is I'm going to be lashing going from the thinner section of the marlin bill up towards the handle, which means it's going to get wider as I lash. And I'm doing it that direction rather than going down, because if you try to lash the other direction, it's going to naturally slide down the piece as you pull it tight, and it just doesn't work well. And so you want to lash up, but I need something for the lashing to grab onto for that first row. And so I'm notching with my chisel here both sides of the marlin bill, and that'll give the lashing a nice little seat. And you can see that there, it'll seat right into those 2 sections, so that as I lash going up towards the handle, I can hold it and pull it real tight. So the style of lashing I'm going to use for this is pretty basic. The lashing is not the primary hold, the joint is. The lashing is going to assist in the joint, but it's primarily for grip and aesthetics. And so because of that, I'm just going to do a twist all the way around, very tight twist. And then how I pull that twist, how I lock it into place, is I'm putting a loop in on one end and leaving a tail in on the other end. The painter's tape is just to hold it in place. I do that just so that it's not flopping around as I'm spinning it, and you'll see what I mean. As I start lashing, I'm going to be spinning the entire piece over and over and over. So if you had to hold the tail in the loop, it'd just become a big hassle, so the painter's tape helped with that. And then I just keep as much tension as humanly possible. And I just lash. So this took a while too, just because I keep a lot of tension on it. I am going to skip quite a bit of this and get right to the end. So now that I'm at that last loop, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to lash in a simple knot. And it's going to kind of lock in that last layer into place. And then once I have that tight, I'm going to go ahead and feed that tail in through the loop. And so what that's going to enable me to do is, now that I have that ready, I can go ahead and pull on that tail that's on that other end, and you'll see the loop start to pull through. It's going to grab onto that cordage there, and I'm going to go ahead and tie a double knot. And so the double knot is just going to make it so it's thick. That way the loop won't be able to pull it all the way through, and then that's going to lock it into place. I'm not going to cut all of the tail off on that top end. You never want to do that. If you do that, it can cause the knot just to come undone, and that's a real hassle. So you leave a little bit of tail left over. I like to leave anywhere between 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, and then I just tuck that tail down underneath. That knot kind of opens up a little bit of a gap, and so you can squeeze that tail in right next to that gap where it opens in between the coil wood and the lashing. So here's the final piece. Man, this piece turned out absolutely beautiful. It's a simple piece, but for its simplicity, it turned out great. I just loved it. Now it's super bright outside, so it's kind of washing out the colors, but look at that. You can see the figure, the light tone coil wood with that beautiful curl that goes all the way down. I love the color contrast between the coil wood and the bill. Just an absolutely gorgeous piece. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed working on this piece. It was a smaller piece, so it's a little bit faster, but just the simplicity and the beauty of it is absolutely amazing. If you liked, go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave me a comment below. It really helps out a lot in getting more people to see the videos. Mahalo plenty for everyone that's watched, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.